This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining today. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give you a little bit of an introduction about our webinar. So as you might be able to see, if this is your first time joining GoToMeeting, on the right hand side you have a little panel, and on the panel you can see a little chat box. You can click on it and you can type any questions that you may have throughout. At the end of each presentation, we will answer all of your questions for you. Okay, so just type in the chat box. You can type also if you just have any remarks or anything like that, then we will read it at the end of each presentation. All right. In the meantime, I would like to get started with the first part, which is how to become a PADI Dive Pro. It's a little bit of an introduction on how to become a PADI Dive instructor, and starting all the way from the beginning and going all the way to the open water scuba instructor rating. So we are going to be talking about the following. All right. Of course, this is where the computer freezes. One moment.
At least you can't blame Philippines Wi-Fi.
No, I know. It's so weird. We literally practiced earlier and everything was fine. I don't know what's going on right now. I literally can't do anything. All right, let's see. There we go. All right, we're good now. Okay, so guys, the topics that we will cover today is we're going to talk a little bit about the PADI career path, and then what a dive master course is, and what the instructor, and so the IDC, instructor development course, actually entails, and what is IDP. So IDP stands for Instructor Development Philippines, and I'll give you a little bit of more information about who we are. And then obviously we can't leave you empty-handed, so we'll end up with a few offers that we can provide to you today. All right, so first things first, we'd like to talk about the PADI career path. So on the screen, you can see there's a little ladder. Basically, anyone who starts as a diver, you can either start as a discover scuba diver, which is all the way down here. And this is kind of like a try dive, but many people start with an open water diver certification. Okay, from there, we're going to make our way up the ladder towards advanced, rescue, and dive master. Yeah, that's the black parts over here. They're the first steps of a PADI Professional rating. Okay, so as you can see, there are actually quite a few steps to take from the time that you take your first breath on the water until the moment that you can call yourself a PADI open water scuba instructor. So following the PADI flowchart, you can reach the black steps. Like I said, these are the professional rating, but even within the professional ratings, you can see that there are a lot of steps in the middle. Okay, and each step requires more certifications, obviously, more courses, but also a little bit more experience with certain things. Yeah, and even though dive master sounds very, very cool, it sounds like the black belt in diving, it is not actually the last step. It is the first step on the PADI Professional ladder. All right. So like I said, what non-pro level courses should you complete in order to go pro? So we first start with the open water diver. So the open water diver course actually includes a couple of classroom sessions, a few pool sessions, and 4 open water dives. Once you've completed this course successfully, you can call yourself an open water diver. With this, you can either continue on towards the advanced open water diver course, or you can start diving anywhere around the world. The maximum depth of the open water diver brings you to 18 meters at a maximum. Bring you further to the advanced open water diver course. These are 5 dives where you can learn to see what you really enjoy in diving. There are a few things that are required. For example, a deep dive and an underwater navigation dive, but this is also the nice time to try night diving or drift diving or learning more about fish identification or underwater photography and buoyancy. Yeah, so these are really the dives that you discover what you truly enjoy in diving. Again, moving on from the advanced open water course, you can then choose to get a bit of more experience or go into the EFR and rescue diver course. I usually recommend people to have at least about 25 to 30 dives under their belts before continuing on to rescue diver. Because in rescue, you're really learning how to take care of others. So you should be able to be comfortable underwater without too much hassle, without having to pay too much attention to your buoyancy or breathing techniques or anything on your own. You should be able to focus on what other people are doing. The EFR course stands for Emergency First Response, and this is a first aid and CPR course. You could also take a first aid and CPR course from a different agency and continue on to rescue diver, but any type of CPR and first aid certification is required before completing the rescue diver course. All right, so as you can see, there's a few different skills involved in each of them. I won't go into too much detail on these courses today. Yeah. Now, once you've completed all the non-professional level courses, you can actually move on to the PADI Dive Master course. So for the PADI Dive Master course, we will teach you how to guide other divers underwater. So you're in charge of their underwater tour, kind of like a guide. Yeah, you can also learn how to assist PADI instructors on courses. And these can be very interesting. You can join them on pool sessions where people are taking their very first breaths on the water. But you can also be joining them on a rescue diver course. You can play victims. You can show the other students on the rescue diver courses how it's done. Yeah, you can have a very active role when assisting with PADI instructors. Because as a dive master, you have quite a bit of experience as well. You can also learn how to teach certain PADI experience programs. These experience programs are things like a refresher course, which we call a reactivate program. You can also teach skin diver courses, for example. And these are kind of snorkeling programs. So you have a little bit of independence to teach a certain few experience programs. You're not authorized to teach full-on courses. So you cannot teach an open water course or anything like that. For that, you need to be an instructor. But they do recognize that as a PADI dive master, you have quite a bit of experience and you should be able to teach. That's why during the dive master course, we also learn how to demonstrate skills in a more fluent way and learning how to not just teach them underwater, but also how to explain these skills to the students. Okay. A big thing of a dive master course is also to become more aware of your dive environment. So how do we do this? We usually do some kind of dive site mapping. All right. So when you go underwater for a dive site map, you take a very different look at a dive site than what you usually do. Usually on a dive, you're distracted by all the fish and all the marine life that you can that you can see. Yeah, however, on a dive site mapping dive, you're now going to start looking at the bottom contour. You're going to start looking at certain points of interest in terms of navigational aspects, maybe some buoys underwater, for example. All right. We're also going to learn more about search and recovery and deep diving and rescue management. Do you have any questions, Colin?
No.
No, you're all good. If it's all right with you, I will just mute you for now. No, it's okay. I can do that for you. Be able to do that. Yep, I'll mute you for now. All right. Very good. So besides besides the dive site mapping, like I said, we also learn more about search and recovery. Search and recovery has to do with obviously search patterns, but we're also learning how to use a lift bag, for example. These are skills that you don't use in everyday diving life. But it is more if you're diving somewhere and, for example, the anchor has dropped from the boat, then there is a way to recover that anchor without having to inflate your BCD. It's not very safe to do so. All right. Deep diving is also one of the skills that we learn on the Dive Master course. And I'm wondering if anyone actually knows how deep we can go on a deep dive. You can type in your answers on the chat box. All right. So on a deep dive on the Dive Master course, what do you think is the maximum depth? You can feet or meters, it's all good. I'm just wondering if anyone knows the answer by any chance. So type away, guys, and find a chat box. Already, all right. 30 meters, yeah, all right, yeah, indeed. So both of you are right in a way. So it is indeed 30 meters for anyone who hasn't done a deep dive certification. So these are the specialties. If you have done them, like Mark has, then yes, you're allowed to go to 40 meters. Yeah, but any regular dive master that hasn't done their deep dive specialty is not allowed to go to 40 meters just yet. All right. The last part is also rescue management. Now, obviously, in the rescue diver course, we learn how to rescue people, and we learn a little bit about how to organize and set up a rescue mission. However, on the Dive Master course, we're learning more and more on how to take care of people, not just underwater, but also the preparation in terms of logistics, in terms of managing the actual group themselves, going from the resort, for example, onto a boat, or from a dive shop onto shore. All right, so all of this is really important for us to learn is rescue management as well. Yeah, and then last but not least, we have watermanship skills. And this is everyone's favorite part of the Dive Master course, the 800-meter snorkel swim and the 400-meter swim and the and the float, yeah, all the survival floats, etc. However, it is quite an important part of the Dive Master course. Obviously, we don't want anyone to be a professional diver having not being able to swim, for example. Yeah. Second favorite part of everyone's Dive Master course is the dive theory. So there are a few hours in classroom that we will spend during your Dive Master course. However, there is a way to make this easier. All right. PADI actually offers an e-learning program. You can do the entire Dive Master theory part online. All you need to do is when you arrive at the resort or when you arrive at your dive shop is to complete an exam. That's all you need to do by then. All right. And last but not least, we learn a little bit more about the dive industry. All right. So depending on what kind of dive shop you do it at, for example, in our resorts, you do kind of become a little bit part of the dive team. You're there early in the morning, getting all the dive equipment ready for all the guests and all the students. Yeah, you're also learning a little bit what it's like to clean up the dive center, so wash all the equipment, etc. Yeah, and professionalism is actually a big part of it as well. All right. So during your Dive Master course, you kind of become part of the dive team. So that means if something goes wrong, you're not the first one to complain. You're the first one to think, how can we fix this? All right. So that is kind of what the dive industry is about as well. All right. So that is what the Dive Master course actually teaches you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to type in the chat boxes and I'll get back to you in a little bit. Now, the fine print of the Dive Master course. These are some prerequisites and certification requirements. It can be a little bit dry. But in order to start your Dive Master course, you need to have your open water, advanced open water, and rescue diver certifications. And you need to have at least your EFR certification or other first aid and CPR. You also need at least 40 logged scuba dives, and you need a current medical signed by a physician. Lastly, actually, you need to be at least 18 years old. All right. In order to get certified, you need at least 60 logged scuba dives. So only 20 more. However, most of our dive masters actually end up with a lot more than just 60. But this needs to include experience with night diving, deep diving, and underwater navigation dives. This doesn't mean that that has to be done on the actual dive master course. You just need to be able to show as a dive master that is now going to be certified that you have done at least one night dive, one dive deeper than 18 meters, and one underwater navigation dive. So usually this is quite an easy requirement. And last but not least, you still need to have a current EFR certification. So if your certification expired during the course, unfortunately, you will have to do one more, which is just a refresher course, so it shouldn't take too long. All right. So for myself, actually, it was the best choice I have ever made. I honestly, I don't even regret it for a minute. I left my office job a long time ago now. Unfortunately, I'm back to it for just a little bit right now, but I shall be back in the water. But spending every day in the ocean, there's just nothing like it, as I'm sure all of you are aware. All right. And the PADI instructor rating actually gives you the best chance of getting a job in the dive industry, because at the moment PADI divers account for about 75% of all divers in the world. So getting a job as an instructor should be not fairly easy, especially not right now, but it should be easier than any other qualification within the dive industry. All right. So moving on to the IDC instructor development course. So the IDC consists of the next few things. So it has e-learning, all right? So the e-learning program is 16 sections long right now. It has been completely revamped in November of last year. And with this, they've removed some of the older formats. Now it is a nice piece of text that you can read through with lots of pictures and some videos that you can watch for experience, but they're no longer the voiceovers of all the slides. It is a little bit more easy to study it now this time, but it also has a lot more information in it. It used to be fairly low key, a little bit more general information, but nowadays e-learning is a really important part because it prepares you to teach certain aspects of the IDC already. It gives you the first bit of a first little taste of what it is like to teach a classroom presentation and a water presentation. Okay. In classroom nowadays, we have a lot more workshops. What used to be quite long and dry presentations from us as staff has now changed into a classroom workshop. So we spend more time on scheduling, for example. We also spend more time trying to work out a certain confined water or an open water dive, how you can set this up, how you can reorganize the skills within a certain dive to make it more efficient, what kind of equipment we need, etc., etc. So it's a lot more based on planning and scheduling rather than just listening to us. That part has definitely moved into the e-learning. Thirdly, we have knowledge development teaching presentations. And this is where you as PADI instructor candidates are going to teach knowledge development. So knowledge development is still part of it, even though all of you are probably not an instructor because you want to be standing in classroom, you'll be wanting to teach in the water. Yeah. However, classroom teaching is still a very important part. So we need to learn how to do this properly while still being able to entertain people. Okay. Then once the classroom bit is done, we're also going to learn how to teach in confined water. We have workshops in confined water where we learn things like discover scuba dives. All right. But we also have teaching presentations. And these mostly refer back to the open water diver course. In the open water diver course, people are learning skills for the very first time underwater. And it is your job to be able to teach them at a very low pace, making sure that they're under no stress or very minimal stress, and that they're actually enjoying themselves. All right, so this is what we learn in confined water teaching presentations. Then we have open water workshops, and these can be quite fun. Nowadays, we have workshops in the open water for rescue. So we're dealing with panic divers at the surface. We're dealing with bringing unconscious divers up to the surface. We're dealing with dragging people out of the water. This can be a lot of fun. It can be also quite hard work, like any rescue diver course really is. But we also learn techniques like underwater navigation, how to set up certain underwater navigational skills, deep dives, and again, the Discover Scuba Diving experience as well. Yeah. Besides the workshops, we also have the open water teaching presentation, and these are skills from the open water course, from peak performance buoyancy, advanced, rescue, and basically you'll get a few assignments where you're going to learn how to teach these certain skills in the open water. Now, in the open water, one of the main things for us is that you learn how to take control of your class, because safety is now a very, very big issue. So you're going to be learning how to take control of your class to make sure that everyone comes back safely at the end of the dive. Okay, and last but not least, they've also added in some more watermanship skills. So again, there's another swim involved, a 400-meter swim this time, and there's another float involved as well. All right. So the e-learning, like I said, these are 16 sections that you can complete from the comfort of your own home. This is a little snapshot. You can do it even on your phone nowadays. So if you haven't done it at home yet, then some of our candidates just sit by the beach or sit by the pool, and they go through the e-learning just on the PADI training app. There's a little snapshot on the left-hand side. Yeah, like I said, the classroom, knowledge development presentations. These are always fun. We also learn a little bit more about risk management, the PADI system, and also how to best teach scuba subjects to your future students. We usually tend to use a lot of tools like Lego, for example, just to explain certain subjects to our students. Yeah, because for most divers, once you become a more experienced diver, you can easily relate certain topics to a dive that you've done. However, for brand new divers, this is nearly impossible. So instead, we use objects like little Lego mini buses or T-shirts or or certain drawings on the board to make things clearer for our students. Confined water teaching presentations tend to be quite a lot of fun. All right, like you see the girl in the picture as well as one of our IDC candidates for a couple of years ago. We we definitely have some stressful times on teaching presentations, but there's definitely also some time for laughter. So nowadays with the confined water teaching presentations, you also learn a little bit more about how to organize logistics and control class. And we always have simulated students, and these are your classmates. And then last but not least, the open water, like I said, the open water teaching presentations. These are always really fun as well. Like you see in the picture, there's the rescue skill. The definite emphasis on open water is a bit more nowadays on rescue as well, because it used to be a fairly small part of the IDC. And we found that many instructors, when they first finished their IDC, they were quite intimidated by the rescue diver course. They were not really happy or ready to teach a rescue diver course. So PADI and us as well, we wanted to change this. Yeah, we wanted to make a bit of a difference and make sure that actually PADI instructors are actively teaching and promoting the rescue diver course. The turnover between an advanced course and rescue diver course is very small. It's only about 2%. So only 2% of the people that do their advanced course will go on into the rescue course. Yeah, the turnover between open water and advanced is really high, and also between rescue and dive master. But there's this one little missing link between the advanced and rescue diver course, and that's why you might have heard already from PADI, is that they are changing little bits and pieces of the advanced course, and they're going to even put in a trial, kind of a trial rescue part, which is the rescue adventure dive. So advanced open water divers will get a little bit of a taste of what it's like to do their rescue diver course. All right. So like it says, the ocean awaits. It's been waiting for a long time. Once you've successfully completed your IDC, it is time for the IE. I don't know if anyone knows what the IE stands for. It stands for it's easy. No, that's just a joke. It actually officially stands for instructor exams. But by the time that you do get to your IE, we try to make it as easy as possible for you. We try to eliminate the element of surprise. All right, because by the time you get to the IE, the last thing you want is on top of your nerves, not knowing what to have to do. Okay, so we try to go through as many skills as possible during the IDC. So once you get to the IE, either you or one of your teammates have already done or taught the skill, it makes a huge difference. Okay, so there won't be any surprises, but the PADI examiners do fly from all over the world, usually from Thailand, or some of them are stationed in the Philippines or Australia. They will come and have a look at your performance. And then once you pass your IE, you can call yourself an instructor. Whoop, whoop. Now, a bit of the fine print of the IDC and a couple of prerequisites. Quite importantly, this is a few of these prerequisites, or actually all prerequisites, obviously can't be changed. But an important one is that you need to be a certified diver for a minimum of 6 months. So sometimes we do get questions from people that say, well, it's been 5.5 months. So do those 2 weeks really matter? Unfortunately, yes, they do. This is a worldwide rule. So this is not just PADI. This is for all scuba organizations. Yeah, you cannot become a dive instructor if you haven't been a diver for at least 6 months. Yeah, the same open water, advanced rescue, and dive master certifications are required. They can be from other agencies. That's not an issue. All right. Then a current EFR certification, once again. And as you can see at the bottom as well, also an EFR instructor rating, or a different CPR and first aid company. Also, again, an instructor rating in order to become a certified instructor. And last but not least, we need at least 100 logged scuba dives and a current medical. Yeah, so just keep this in mind. Now, what else do we offer you? So an IDC at IDP. Obviously, there are many, many different companies in the world that offer IDCs, and the price ranges sometimes are quite large. So sometimes you have very cheap IDCs and you have very expensive IDCs. We're definitely not the cheapest, absolutely not, but we're also not the most expensive. But what we do try to offer you is a lot of service. Yeah, and I see that a few of you are here today, and I think you do, or you can at least attest to that. So what else do we offer you? We offer you Dive Against Debris Specialty Instructor course. This is a course that is included in your package, and you learn a little bit more about Project Aware, but also you become more of a Project Aware role model. All right, any dive instructor, I think, should be quite active in their Project Aware activities. Then secondly, we give you the Emergency Oxygen Provider Specialty Instructor course for free as well. This is a course where you learn how to teach emergency oxygen use to students. But for many, this is also a refresher, or maybe for the first time, learning how to use an emergency oxygen kit themselves. A very, very important skill because there are still many accidents happening every couple of weeks where people are not actually trained in oxygen use, and the effects could have been a lot less severe if someone had been able to be there and give oxygen. So you guys are hopefully spreading this knowledge. Then we nowadays also have a Marine Research Introduction Day. With our sister company, Institute for Marine Research, we offer you the opportunity to join them for a day and have a look at what their activities are like. And of course, if you really enjoy it, you're more than able to join. And the next part is our side mount workshop. This is a new thing, the same with the adaptive techniques workshop. We've been wanting to give our instructor candidates a little bit of a taste what other options are there, because many instructors get stuck within the single tank diving with students that are fully abled. However, there are many students around the world that are differently abled as well. Also, again, side mount can help people with differently abled diving techniques, or you can also dive side mount when you're doing cave diving, for example, or just for fun, really. Yeah, so we give you guys a little workshop, just a little taste. And if you really enjoy it, you can continue on to the entire specialty. We have an equipment service workshop as well. And this workshop is presented by one of our local dive retailers, Aquaventure Whitetip. And on this workshop, or during this workshop, we learn how to take an entire regulator apart. All right, we have learn to teach programs where you learn how to teach together with an instructor, preparation days, again, prepping for the IDC, and of course, 10 free fun dives, because in the end, well, that's really what you're there for, is to dive, right? We teach this out of both of our resorts, Liquid Dive Dumaguete and Atmosphere Resorts. All right, you can have a look on their websites if you want to learn more about our resorts as well. I won't go into that too much today, but there's lots and lots of information. Our team consists of 8 people. All right, we have on the picture, we have Tim, who is one of our course directors from Canada. We have myself. Yeah, we have Tracy Chan. She is our course director for the Cantonese and Mandarin market. And then Gabrielle Holder, she is the owner of Atmosphere, and she's one of our alumni course directors. So she's actually retired as a course director at the moment, unfortunately, but you will still see her there. Then we have our staff instructors as well. We have Ulrika, Julia, Wesley, and Gabrielle, or Gabe. And these guys, they help us during the IDC with different languages as well, which makes it a little bit easier. But also they're great people to have in the water with us. They have lots of experience in the dive industry. Yeah. All right. And our IDP graduates are working all over the world, as you might be able to see. On this map, these are actually some locations of our graduates from last year. Unfortunately, at the moment, obviously, this map looks a little bit different, but hopefully next year the map will look this nice and pretty again with little blue dots all over the world. So just to round things up, guys, I want to give you a bit of an offer. So if you book this month, you save 5% on your IDC. Yeah, this is a little bit over 5,000 pesos, which is about $100 or so. Yeah, so it's a nice little offer. You can use the code IDP WebSep, so webinar for September, so IDP WebSep, in order to claim your discount. And you can get started on any of our PADI courses as soon as tomorrow. We have e-learning options for a lot of courses, many different specialties. Some of these courses can be done online completely. So if there are any dive courses that you're interested in, please send us a message and we'll plan a course for you. And don't worry, we know that at the moment things don't really go our way for anywhere in the world. So if you have booked, don't worry too much, because you will be able to postpone your course without any extra costs. Okay. So guys, I'm rounding up for today. I'm going to pass over the mouse in a moment to the lovely Lara. So our topics of today were the PADI career path, what a dive master course is, and what the IDC is, and what IDP is, and some offers. You can always contact me or my colleagues through contact us through info@instructordevelopmentphilippines.com. All right. So let me just have a quick look if there are any questions from the audience. Instructor examination. Well done, Lara. I just saw it now. So guys, up next is Lara, and she's going to talk to you a bit more about Central and South American dive destinations. And especially the best part, it's off the beaten track. All right, I'm going to pass over the controls to Lara now. One moment, please. All right, Lara, you should be able to go.
Hi guys, how's everybody doing? All right, let's see if we can. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to talk about diving in Central and South America. So a little bit about me. My name's Lara. I'm from Brazil, but I also I'm an U.S. national, and I've been living in Argentina and Uruguay for the last lots of years. We're not going to go there. So I did my IDC in April 2019 with obviously IDP and Berlinda, and I am a warm waters kind of girl, although Isla may possibly be changing that after after my talk. So I usually try to go to warm waters because that's where I feel more comfortable. If I could just dive in leggings and a rash guard, that would be my happy place. All right, so has anybody ever been to South or Central America? Where did you go and did you dive? You can chat if you want. Has anybody been here, around here? Honduras, nice. Ooh, Cozumel's beautiful. Nicaragua, but not diving. Ooh, I have diving for you in Nicaragua, Tom. And ooh, Easter Island. Wow, Easter Island is beautiful. All right, that's really cool. So you guys have been to some of the most amazing places. All right, so I'm going to talk about the best known places that everybody tends to go to, the one-hit wonders, and then places to go, fish to see. And I'm going to give you my top 2 off the beaten track. All right, so the best known places, everyone has been here or knows that they should come. Galapagos in Ecuador, obviously the endemic biodiversity that there's there, just both in the water and on land, is amazing. You get to see animals that you don't see anywhere else in the world, and like the penguins and the turtles, the big turtles. And obviously it's shark central, hammerheads, gray sharks, white and black tip, nurse sharks, and the famous Galapagos sharks. So this is about 1,000 kilometers from the coast, which translates into about 621 miles for my not meter-oriented friends. You can either do land-based diving or liveaboards, and I don't know if you guys heard about the latest current events about shark fishing with the Chinese boats there. It's all really sad. But Galapagos is one of the best known places, and it really is fabulous diving. The next place that's really talked about is the Blue Hole in Belize. So it's got these amazing cave formations that you can see as you dive, and the stalactites look like Stone Age chandeliers. But it's kind of like a gothic fairy tale between the lighting and the quiet, overcast, eerie kind of feeling that there is to it. Sadly, a lot of people kind of become disappointed after they dive here. I think it's one of those places that has been so talked about and is on all of the dive lists that sometimes people will go there and come out disappointed that it wasn't as good a dive as they thought it should have been. But it really is a nice place, and it's probably on everybody's bucket list. And the other place that's really talked about is Coco Island in Costa Rica. It's got some amazing dives. If you do not like boats, this is not the place for you. It's about a 30-hour boat ride, or you can obviously do a liveaboard. As a side note, this is where the Jurassic Park movie was filmed. So it's got that very virgin kind of woods and tropical forest. So it's a volcanic island about 8 by 3 kilometers, which is 5 by 2 miles, with 20 pristine sites, and it's a marine national park. You can have dolphins, orcas, sometimes humpback whales, and it's got all kinds of like walls and reefs and blue dives. But these are the best known places, so everyone has been here. Let me take you on some other places. So One Hit Wonders is for me the place that you usually only go for one thing specifically. So if you want to dive with sea lions, you either go to Uruguay and Punta del Este, or you go to Argentina in Puerto Madryn. And these are adorable little creatures. They're curious, they're friendly, they're cute. I'm going to say they're a little bit nibbly. They figure out what's going on with their mouth. So you can get a little love bite, but nothing serious. And then obviously Easter Island in Chile is, you know why people go there. It's like a 60-meter visibility, clear waters. There's 160 species. 26% of them are endemic, and the water temperature is between 18 and 26 degrees centigrade, which is about 64 to 79 Fahrenheit. And it's a beautiful place. And then in Brazil, you have this one place called Fernando de Noronha. It's an island as well. It's a natural heritage for humanity by UNESCO. Visibility can be up to 50 meters, and the water temperatures are lovely, 27 degrees. There's over 24 dive sites, 230 species of fish, and 15 species of coral. Everybody that talks about diving in Brazil talks about this island. I failed to mention that in Easter Island in Chile, they also have these endemic species, and one of them is this weird looking lobster. I just thought I shared that with you guys. So everyone talks about going to South America and going to either the best known places or these one-hit wonders, but this is fake news because there are definitely other places to go to. So many places to go, so many fish to see. All right, so you guys, Isla did her course in Honduras, and the best known places in Honduras are usually Roatan and Utila. They're the Bay Islands. They're tropical islands. They're technically Caribbean islands, but because they belong to Honduras, I decided to add them. So it's really cool because they have the second largest barrier reef in the world, and they have all tons of sharks and turtles, eels, tropical fish. There's all kinds of easy dives. It's for all levels of divers, and it's kind of like the diver paradise because it's tropical islands, warm waters, and cold beers are definitely assured. But I think that the coolest things to see here are the giant sponges and the black corals because you don't get to see them everywhere. And I'm gonna add a off the beaten track for Honduras. There's a place called Tela. It's on land, so it's on the mainland. It's one of the oldest reefs, and it remains almost intact because it's only recently been, I'm gonna say air quotes, discovered. So there hasn't been a lot of fishing, and there hasn't been a lot of diving there yet. And the reef is between 10 and 20 meters below the surface, so it's pretty shallow. And it has about a 70% coral coverage, so it's really just corals everywhere. The health of the corals, they believe one of the theories is that it's due to urchins, like the cleanup crew. So they're eating the algae and they're making it really healthy. So scientists are now figuring out if that is the case, if they could actually say raise urchins and then take them to other reefs, and if that would act the same way. So they're still kind of studying this area, but it's a really nice area to visit and to dive in. So in terms of Venezuela, obviously it's not the greatest place to visit, not just because of COVID, but obviously because of political and social and economic instability. And it's a shame. Venezuela is a beautiful country. It has waterfalls, beautiful beaches. It's just really amazing nature and really good food also, by the way. So these islands, both Isla Margarita and Los Roques, they're both in the Caribbean as well. And so they're technically Caribbean, but I'm going to take them for Venezuela. So one of the places that I want to talk about is Isla Los Testigos, or the Witness Island. It's an easy boat ride from Margarita Island, which is why I added Margarita there. But this place is a virgin island and it has very few tourist services. It's located between the fresh and warm Amazon currents and the salty, cooler Atlantic currents, so it's great for biodiversity. But you can't scuba everywhere since it is protected. And you can see sperm whales and dolphins, both when you go towards the islands and sometimes when you're diving there. It's only about 8 islands, and there's about 200 inhabitants, and they're mostly all related. And then Los Roques in Venezuela is kind of more of an upscale place to go, and the crystal clear waters are amazing. It's the largest marine national park in Latin America, which is why I wanted to add it to the list. It's about 300 islands, and there's wrecks and caves and reefs. It's a really nice place to go. So if Venezuela ever gets to stand up on its feet again, then I recommend going there and visiting. And this is a picture of the lettuce corals, which are absolutely everywhere in Tela. It's lettuce corals extraordinaire there. All right, so for Argentina and Uruguay, it's more than just sea lions. So there's an underwater town hidden in a dam called Piedras Moras. The hidden city is called El Salto, which is the jump. It's underwater. Obviously, when they did the dam, they flooded the city. And it's really cool because when you dive there, you can see trees and bridges. You can see a 1914 power plant that was there. And the kind of creepy thing is that they also had a graveyard. So you get to float around in that. The floor is covered in clams and mussels and sponges, as well as a few fish. But it's really interesting to go like into a city, an actual city that just got flooded on purpose. Then in Uruguay, we do have rivers and lakes and dams and quarries. I feel like the quarries here have really not been as explored as they have, say, in the United States. Diving is not that big of a sport here, unfortunately, but they do have them, and it's freshwater diving, so it's always a lot of fun to be able to add that to an experience that you've had. This quarry specifically, it's called El Terrible, or the Terrible. It was created when the neighboring dam was built and nature took care of filling it with freshwater. Because it's used for courses, they have these platforms, but they also sunk an old car and an old bus in there. So you've got kind of artificial reefs to see. Not really reefs though, like algae gatherings more like it, but it's still interesting to watch. And then in Villa Traful, which is the south of Argentina, you have a submerged cypress forest. So these are about 60 cypress trees that in the 60s, the earth moved and they fell into this lake. And because of the sun and because of the water, they've become this white, discolored tree. And they almost seem petrified, which is the process of wood becoming fossilized. So they're rock hard. And it is super weird to go into this lake and just swim around. It kind of like the upside down world where you can see trees in the water. But it is a different experience. And you usually have to go in a dry suit or lots and lots and lots of layers. It's a cold water diving for what South America considers cold water diving anyway. It's about 10 degrees centigrade, centigrades, which is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. But yeah, it's a different kind of trippy diving. All right. Moving on to Chile and Peru. So in Chile, there's obviously Easter Island. But if you go to the southern tip of Chile, you go to this place called Punta Arenas, which is literally Sand Point. And you get clear, cold water from the glaciers. And this was the Strait of Magellan, so it used to be the only water route between the Pacific and the Atlantic before the Panama Canal. And there's a couple of wrecks and legends sleeping under the surface, surrounded by algae. And Cape Horn current passes by here, so it leaves a lot of life as it comes by. And it kind of feels like getting a time capsule and going back in time, drifting into prehistoric diving before evolution. Including some of the sites here are actually allowed for tech diving in Chile in general. It's actually of South America. It is the one country that has the most tech-related diving setup. They're set up to be able to cater to tech divers. But specifically here in Punta Arenas, you see all these, water cockroaches, which just goes to show that they really do survive absolutely anything, and some weird neon-looking jellyfish. It's really cool, very different diving. And on the other side, you have Robinson Crusoe Island, and it's really beautiful. It's kind of like the best kept secret because not a lot of people go there, but it almost feels like an underwater garden. All of these corals, they're bright orange and red and yellow, and it kind of feels like they're just little flowers everywhere. It's about 20 meters visibility, and these waters hold the largest number of unique marine species. So you get to see this one sea lion that's called the two-haired sea lion. It only lives here. It's unique to this area. and lots of fish friends and that inhabit all of these little corals. For Peru, they have a neat place called the Organ Platform. It used to be an oil rig. Obviously, it's no longer used, but the iron legs go down to 70 meters. So it became a really cool and very full of life artificial reef. And because this artificial reef is so full of very cool corals and sea slugs and whatnot, then lots of fish come to eat. And because lots of fish come, then lots of sea lions come because they like to eat the fish. And as you can tell from the bottom picture, lots of birds as well. So yeah, these are all common visitors for this area. And diving here kind of resembles Pier North, which was for me my favorite dive site in Darwin. And it's really cool. So you get really cool shots with the pillars of the oil rig. And the other place I want to talk about in Peru is called Punta Sal reefs. Again, salt point. So there's lots of soft corals here. It's a lot of color, a lot of tropical fish and turtles and octopus and seahorses. And it's easy for any kind of diver. So even if you're a new diver, this is a great place to go and to see. And it's not really deep. And it's warmer waters with plenty of life. It's in the north of Peru. All right. Next, I'm going to talk about Brazil. So Brazil is huge and it has a lot of coast. You can pretty much dive anywhere along the coast of Brazil. There's a lot of free diving in Brazil. And aside from Fernando de Noronha, which is that island that I talked about before, like the one spot everyone talks about, there's also cave diving in Brazil in a place called Bonito, which literally means pretty. And the places that you can dive there are called Mystery Lagoon, Anumas Abyss, and Mimoso Grotto. So these are the freshwater, crystal clear, pure places that you can dive in. They go up to 80 meters in depth with over 15 meters of just these huge limestone formations. So it's some serious cave diving here. The coolest thing about this is from the abyss, for what the place is called the abyss, you actually have to rappel down from a small hole in the ceiling that you can see in the picture on the top left. And then when you're actually diving, the water is so clear that if you look up, you can see all the way to the surface of the water and through the surface of the water to the little hole that you came in here. And it really just feels like you're looking literally into the abyss. So it's very well named. And the water is a little bit cooler, but it's still doable without a dry suit, for sure. Then this other place is called Santos Slab. It's literally a slab of rock that when the water level is at the right place, it kind of looks like a whale. The reason I'm talking about this place specifically is because it is on the coast of São Paulo, not the city, but the state of São Paulo. And the city of São Paulo is one of the largest cities in the world, and people don't really equate diving with this city. So I thought it was interesting to add this to the list of places. How do you get back out of the abyss? Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt because Isla asked me a question about the diving in the abyss. So there is a way out that you actually have to climb through, but they do it that way so that you can experience the whole process of rappelling in. If you refuse to do it, then there is a way in and out that it just requires a lot of stairs. But yeah, that's how you would get out. Good question though. Okay, so back to the Santos Slab. It's a state marine park, and there's about 9 dive sites, and endangered species, they thrive here because of the protected status. Rays are really common, turtles, there's lots of fish, so there's even a wreck at 21 meters deep. And the visibility tends to be between 20 and 30 meters, which is relatively good unless it's a bad day for diving and the water is all mixed up, then you don't see anything. And the temperature isn't bad. It's between 18 and 24 degrees centigrade, which is about 64 to 75 Fahrenheit. But yeah, I wanted to add this place because it is by such a big city that people don't necessarily visit for good reason. But if you are there for whatever reason, maybe for work or because you're visiting someone else or it's a stopover, then just know that you have an option to dive that's not very far away. It's about an hour drive away. Oh, alrighty. Next, I'm going to talk about Guatemala and Nicaragua. So there is diving in both of these places. For Guatemala, I chose the Atitlan Lake. It's recently become a little bit more popular in terms of tourism, and it's a volcanic area, so it's a volcanic lake. And you can see the underwater volcanic formations, and you can actually touch the warm volcanic mud when you walk in. The lake itself is about 350 meters deep. And the cool thing is they discovered Samabaj inside the lake. Samabaj is a Mayan city. They call it the Mayan Atlantis. It was inhabited over 2,000 years ago. However, this is an example of how humans fail to learn from experience because apparently the water level rises over time. So it keeps on sinking man-made structures, as you can see on this house on the right that kind of looks like it's starting to fill up with water. Well, it is, because for tourists, they build hostels and hotels around the edges of the lake, but then the water rises and they have to abandon these houses. So locals live a little bit more towards the higher end of the lake so that they don't have to keep rebuilding their house, but they don't learn and they keep building things that just keep getting overtaken by the water. I don't know why. And then another place that's really cool in Guatemala is Junalye. It's actually a cenote dive. So if you've been to Mexico and you've dived the cenotes, it's pretty similar. And it's located in an ecological park. The water is quite cool since it comes from underground. But the coolest thing about it is that it used to be a Mayan ceremonial cave. So they found artifacts with engravings, like the picture that's shown here, inside this cenote, which is pretty cool. So it must have been a sacred place to them. And then in Nicaragua, we have some fresh and saltwater treasures as well. We have Corn Island. So Corn Island it's the reef that's in Corn Island. It actually starts in Belize and it makes its way here. Unfortunately, some of the hurricanes have damaged some of the reefs, so it's not as healthy as it could be. So there's colorful coral and plenty of fish, and there's underwater caves. The waters are really very clear, so they're also technically Caribbean waters, but again, I'm going to say it's from Nicaragua. There's wreck diving, reef diving, night deep diving. Everything is possible in this island. And the other place I chose to talk about was Laguna del Apoyo, or the Lagoon of Support, or Support Lagoon. So you can see freshwater turtles here, which is a novelty for me. I thought that was pretty cool. And it was formed after a volcanic eruption. Obviously, it's a volcanic lake. So it's a mix of rainwater and underground water that formed the lagoon. And even though the amount of different species, aren't that many, they have discovered certain species of fish in this lagoon specifically. So that at least it gives it a little bit of an edge, let's say. And the other thing that I thought was interesting when I was here is that it's at 75 meters above sea level. But it's believed that the conic structure of the lagoon towards the beginning of the lagoon, let's say, it actually goes down to 100 meters below sea level. So it's kind of like altitude diving. And people have added some statues to it. I'm not sure why. I think maybe they thought that it added some kind of value to it. But anyway, that's what it is. All right. So El Salvador and other places in Ecuador and other places in Costa Rica, I feel like they're the usually ignored wonders. And in El Salvador specifically, you have Los Cobanos, which is saltwater or ocean water diving. It's up to 160 kilometers just of isolated volcanic rock formations. There's a couple of wrecks from 1890 and the 1900 that are now artificial reefs, as you can see in the picture here. So you get a lot of life. You can actually see humpback whales from November to March, along with dolphins and turtles, and it's a protected area. So it's a really nice place to go. And the other place in El Salvador that I want to talk about is Coatepeque Lake. So this is also a volcanic lake, and it's over 120 meters deep, and it's altitude diving as well, with wall dives and deep dives, and you can even do night dives. And the cool thing about this is it's on the list of the 10 most beautiful lakes of the world. So you can actually dive on one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. And the volcanic lava, it's hardened onto the granite walls of the lake. So it's a very strange thing to be underwater there and actually look at these 100-year-old formations and wonder how it could have looked before. So Ecuador, I know that there's the Galapagos, and it's an amazing place, as it should be. But there's also this one place on the mainland in Ecuador that's called Puerto Lopez Port. There's regular whale sightings. They're humpback whales. They come to mate here every year. And it's inside a national park, so it's protected. And there's plenty of rays and turtles and dolphins. They're regular visitors. The visibility is really good, and it has a really large coral formations, especially Gorgonian fans. They're huge. They're one of a couple of the largest Gorgonian fans I've ever seen. And it's really pretty. We're a really pretty place. I added a picture of it just so you could see that, you know, it's also a beach and there's also different things to do. It's not just for diving. And then for Costa Rica, along with Coco Islands, we have the Cahuita National Park. It's a large coral reef system. There's 35 species of coral. There's 240 species of fish. It's colorful, it's tropical. It's an easy dive. The beach is a horseshoe shape, so it's really hard to get lost. You have to try hard to get lost. But it is a really nice place. If you're in Costa Rica and Coco Island is too far because it's a 30-hour boat ride and you don't want to do that, then there are other places that you can dive as well. All right, but I failed to mention 2 countries in this South and Central American Diving Handbook. And they were left out on purpose because they're my top 2 picks. So can anybody guess what they are? Yes, I'm sure people can get lost, but you have to try hard to get lost. All right, anybody, any guesses? The 2 places I have not mentioned? Doot, 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 doot. No? No guesses? Bolivia? I didn't mention Bolivia, it's true. And you can technically dive in the Lake Titicaca, and there are submerged ruins, and it's altitude diving, and they actually started archaeological diving as well, but definitely not one of my top picks. No offense to Bolivia. Argentina I did talk about. We went through a couple of the hidden city, the submerged city, and the cypress forest that's underwater. No worries. Colombia, yes. Colombia is one of them. And I think the other one might actually surprise a lot of people. All right. Good guesses. All right, here we go. So, no, go back. There we go. Okay. Oh, come on. Are you staying? Yes, you're staying. Okay, so my top 2 is Colombia, absolutely. It has amazing diving both in the Caribbean side and on the Pacific side. So if you're more of a Caribbean island kind of person, you can go to either San Andres or Providencia. So San Andres is a bigger island. It's got a lot more tourist services. It's usually called the place of the 7 color seas. And I added a picture here, which doesn't really do any justice, but it's literally got all shades of blue from, you know, baby blue, turquoise, dark blue. There's just all shades of blue. I actually was on a boat with someone who every so often would say, oh, can we please stop the boat for a second? And she would grab a little bit of water from wherever we stopped. And she did this, I'm not even kidding. She did this like, I don't know, 10 times. And then eventually we asked her what she was trying to do. And she said she was trying to get all the different shades of blue in her little bottles. And then we had to tell her that that's not exactly how it works. So we were stopping for no good reason, to be honest. But yeah, we had to teach her about how things in the bottom seem to remove the light, and that's why there's different shades of blue. That was a fun boat ride. All right, so yeah, so San Andres has a lot of tourist services, and it's a pretty big island. But if you want to see sharks, you have to go to Providencia. It's a smaller island. You can get there taking a flight or taking a boat ride. And I saw a shark on every single dive there. It really was just a beautiful place to dive. And Providencia has the 3rd largest barrier reef in the world. The water temperatures are obviously amazing, and you can see for miles and miles and miles. It's about 30 meters, or I did it in feet, 98 feet. Sorry, I'm a metric person. I'm not sure how far it is in miles. But yeah, it's amazing. And the other part of Colombia, which is the Pacific side of Colombia, there's this island called Malpelo. They have hammerheads, silky sharks, all kinds of reef sharks, so nurse and white and black tip. It's a tiny volcanic island. I added a picture so you can see how small it is. It's a UNESCO Natural Heritage Site, and it's the only option is to go on a liveaboard. And you have to at least be advanced because there are strong currents and depth and waves. This is the Golden Triangle, that it's called the Golden Triangle for scuba diving, on this side of the world anyway. And it would be Galapagos, Coco Island, and Malpelo. They're pretty close together as well in the map, so it makes sense. But it's really just out of this world diving, amazing. You have all kinds of animals to see, pelagic and fish. It's just ridiculous. Every dive was amazing. But my top one for diving in Central and South America, here we go, is Panama. I feel like Panama is the most overlooked country for diving because it's usually a stopover. People don't tend to go to Panama to dive, and it has some of the most amazing diving that I've ever had. You have on the Caribbean side a place called Bocas del Toro, or mouth of the bull. It's one of the best preserved systems of soft and hard coral reef. You have year-round diving. The waters are super clear. It's part of a protected area. There's about 15 dive sites, I believe, and the water temperature is lovely. You even have cave dives, which I added a picture just for you to see how cool it looks. It kind of looks like a cenote. It's amazing. And then you have on the Pacific side, you have this island called Coiba, which is over 2,700 square kilometers of islands and woods and beaches, reefs, mangroves. It's surrounded by one of the largest coral reefs of the Pacific in the Americas, like in the Americas side of things. It's a UNESCO Natural Heritage Site. It was some of, by far, the best diving that I've ever had. You can book a dive. So what I did was, it was land-based, but we were on the boat almost the entire day. So we left from Santa Catalina, which is on the coast of Panama, and we took a boat ride to Coiba, not Coiba Island itself, because it's protected, and sometimes the park opens for you to sleep there, sometimes it doesn't. But a nearby island, and we would just go diving. We would get on the boat early in the morning and do 3 dives a day, and then go back and sleep on this island. And in between dives, we would stop at beaches and eat there directly. But it was a small group, so it was 6 of us, including the guide or instructor. And at one point, we were literally surrounded by a school of barracudas. So it was 6 of us in the middle and just barracudas, all like 360 degrees around us. And it was one of those things where you're not sure if you're super happy or super scared, but it was amazing to watch them swim around us, all those little silver lights, it seemed like. And at a different dive site, we were greeted by a big devil ray. She just showed up. I'm going to say she because I don't know. She just showed up and started eating all of the plankton in the water and giving us these amazing little pirouettes and dancing right above us. It was amazing. And out of all of these experiences, I actually cried when I heard a whale sing underwater. So I have the video here. I'm not sure how well it's going to play out, but I'm going to have you listen, and I hope that you can hear it as well as I remember hearing it. So make sure to increase your volume. And I can play it again if anybody wants. No volume. What's going on? I don't think I can hear it. I don't know if anyone can hear it. I could not hear that. I don't. Oh, you can hear it? Okay. I can hear it because it's your computer. Can anybody else hear it? No, yeah, okay. So yeah, I figured this was gonna happen. I don't know if I can actually. Oh, I see. I know what we can do. B, can you unmute yourself and then we can play it again? Yes, Isla. Or we can share it. Yes, I can also
Yes,
share it.
I can definitely unmute myself. Let me try to play it again for you guys. Let's see if it works.
Nope. I still can't hear it.
No, still nothing.
Nope.
Aww, I'm listening to this beautiful whale song.
All right, I'm gonna share it. Definitely, we can share it. But it was amazing to hear it underwater. Obviously, we looked for it, and you would think it's easy to find, but it's not. It's harder than it seems, especially underwater where you don't know where sound is coming from. But yeah, it was just amazing. I literally started crying and then got made fun of, but I don't care. I stand by my decision to cry. So definitely go visit Panama. It's amazing diving. The people are really nice. The food is really nice. They also have cold beer if you're into that. And that would be my top pick for diving. There we go. Okay, so just quick review. We went through the best known places, the one-hit wonders, all the places to go and fish to see, and my top 2 off the beaten track. And oh, it didn't come through the way I planned, but I have all the dive sites mentioned here, which I can send to you as well because it doesn't look correct. It's missing like a few of them, about half of them. And then a few references of people I talked to, and obviously Google some of the water temperatures. I don't remember them. But yeah, feel free to get in touch with me. Here's my email and here's my Instagram. If you have any questions or if you're thinking about diving in Central or South America, let me know. I will gladly help in any way that I can. And I don't know if we have any other questions. I think I kind of went through them, but I don't know if anyone has other questions. I'm gonna go with no.
It doesn't look like it, Lara. But thank you so much for inspiring us with so much knowledge about cool dive sites. I can't wait to travel to South America and dive all around. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So, but thank you. It was actually really, really interesting. I think someone unmuted themselves for a second. Let's see if anyone else. Guys, you feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. All right, it's absolutely no problem. All right.
All right, either
That.
or I gave them all the information.
Exactly. All right, Lara. Thanks again so much, hon. I'm gonna switch things over and I'm gonna send the controls towards Isla because she's going to talk to us a little bit more about diving in Scotland. A little bit different type of diving, I'm sure, but I'm still extremely interested to see what you have to say, Isla. So I'm gonna pass you the controls now.
Hi.
Let's see if
Hello?
you're able to. Yep. Can you hear us? Yep.
Can
All
everyone
right,
hear
you
me
can
okay?
take it. I'm just gonna turn off my microphone.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Isla. Oh, hang on. There we go. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience of diving in Scotland so far. I'm still fairly new to it, so I'm by far not an expert. But this is just a little bit about my experience so far. So just to introduce myself, yeah, my name's Isla. I grew up in the south of Scotland. And spent the first 20 years of my life here. And then before I went traveling and started my diving career, I actually did my open water in Honduras back in 2012. Although now I really want to go back and dive a lot more of South America and possibly go back to Honduras sometime. But then again, I didn't dive again until I was 21, and then started diving a lot more and eventually did my dive master in Tenerife, which is in the Canary Islands just off the coast of Morocco. It's not as warm as the tropics, so not as warm as like the Philippines, but nowhere near as cold as Scotland. So it's sort of a happy medium between the two. I would highly recommend anyone to go to the Canaries. Again, a different style of diving, very different from tropical. You've got things like angel sharks, which are probably my favorite species of shark. We've got big stingrays. The topography there is volcanic. The islands there are volcanic, so you've got these amazing structures underwater. Lots of swim-throughs and arches and rock, yeah, really cool rock formations. I then went on to do my IDC in the Philippines back in, I think, April last year. I have lost track of dates and times. And after that worked for a little bit and then ended up in Borneo, which was my most recent job. Actually, these are some of my photos from Borneo. Probably the brightest, most colourful part of this presentation. It's all about to get a bit more green and grey. I ended up working with an organisation called TRAC. Oh, and their website's gone a bit weird down there. Oh, and I just wanted to do a quick little shout out to TRAC, who I was working for up until having to come home due to the pandemic. But they are doing some amazing work out there on sort of reef restoration and turtle protection, turtle hatcheries, etc. So as you can see, there's some incredible work that they've been doing there. So check them out on their website or on Instagram as well. So first thing, oh, the flag's gone a little bit weird. First thing you want to do is find Scotland. So as I said, I ended up back in Scotland due to the pandemic. But for anyone who's interested in coming to dive here, we are located in the north of Europe here. I often have people, when I say I'm from Scotland, quite often people think I mean Sweden, which is just up here. But we are part of the UK for now. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, so we are in the north of Europe. We are part of the UK, but there's sort of quite a strong national identity within Scotland, which is separate from the rest of the UK. We kind of have our own little thing. Yeah, so if you're wanting to dive in Scotland, the first thing you're probably going to want to do is find yourself a dive centre. Here we go. So the guys that I am diving with at the moment is a great little business called Diving Adventures Scotland. When I initially got home, I was having a little bit of a moment that I'm sure a lot of you can relate to, of like, what am I going to do with myself? I didn't mean to be at home, and I planned on diving in the tropics for a lot longer, but found myself at home and decided I wanted to do some diving while I was here. I really was missing being able to dive every day and dive at all, really, so decided to try and do some diving in Scotland. So sent out a bunch of emails, and the guys at Diving Adventure Scotland got back to me and offered for me to come out and give dry suit diving a go and give Scottish diving a go, and with the view that maybe down the line I would, once I'm comfortable, get to do some teaching for them. And they're based out of Edinburgh, which was really handy for me because a lot of my family's based here. Yeah. So next up, what you need to start thinking about when diving in Scotland is sort of the conditions are very different from in the Philippines, or from the looks of it, a lot of South America. We obviously are quite far north, so you have to start thinking about how cold it's going to be. Scotland has not the greatest weather, and the water is actually pretty cold at times. Sorry, I'm lost track. So yeah, the water in Scotland is maximum probably about 15 degrees. There's an interesting thing of the warmest that the water will be in Scotland is around about November, and this is because it actually lags behind the warmer weather. So our warmest time of year is sort of August, July and August, but it takes a little bit of time for the water to warm up to the warmest of 15 degrees, which is pretty chilly. But it can be down to, depending on the dive site, it can be down to, I think the coldest I've dived in was about 8 degrees, which is not so fun when that hits your the little bit of skin that you have exposed. So that's why we need to start thinking about dry suits. This picture here is a picture of my friend Ben, who looks pretty happy, but that's only really because he's wearing the dry suit. If he was in a wetsuit, he probably wouldn't have quite such a big smile. So what is the difference between a dry suit and a wetsuit? So a dry suit, hang on. Oh, no, I want to go back. Oh, how do I go back? Thank you. So yeah, the difference between, thank you. The difference between a dry suit and a wetsuit is kind of what it says on the tin. A dry suit has sort of rubber, either neoprene, latex, or silicone seals around the neck and around the wrists as well. And the hope is that this will prevent any water from actually getting into the suit. They're not 100% effective. Sometimes you do end up with some water coming in, hopefully not too much, and hopefully you stay relatively dry. And how it works is you have a small inflator button on the front of your chest, which is then connected by another LPI hose, so the same as the hose that comes into your BCD. There's another one attached to your first stage, which will then come into your inflator button on your chest, and then when you're under the water you can add air to the suit and hopefully it'll stay in, and air is a much better insulator than water, so hopefully you won't get wet and therefore you won't get as cold. as you would if you were in a wetsuit or even a semi-dry suit. There's a couple of different kinds of dry suits. So you can get a dry suit that is made out of neoprene. It's usually crushed neoprene, so it won't let any water through. They are still very thick and quite difficult to move around in, but there's a sort of more modern technology, which is a sort of tri-laminate type material, which is a lot more flexible. It's a lot easier to move around in, a lot more comfortable, but not as warm. The neoprene suits are a lot warmer and a lot harder wearing. Okay. So Diving Adventure Scotland is a PADI dive centre. We're not officially a PADI dive centre, but all of our instructors are PADI certified. So we run PADI dry suit courses, but there are a few different, most of the other big agencies offer an equivalent course. So the big ones in the UK are BSAC, so British Sub Aqua Club, and then in Scotland there's actually Scottish Sub Aqua Club, which are quite big, and offer sort of a more, just a different style of teaching, sometimes PADI versus the other teaching agencies. I find that in general it depends on the instructor. If you've got an instructor who knows what they're doing, then it doesn't really matter which agency they're with. So the nature of diving in Scotland is a little bit different. There's less sort of dive centres that we're used to in the tropics. So unfortunately, we have less contact time with students, but that means that we do a lot of the theory online. So utilising the PADI e-learning for all of the theory. There isn't a huge amount of theory before the dry suit. The most that you're going to learn is actually being in the suit and adapting to the differences there. And then you usually have a pool orientation session. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions at the moment, we don't have access to the swimming pool. They're all shut at the moment. Hopefully soon we'll be able to get back into a swimming pool, but we don't really know. So at the moment we've been doing the equivalent of the pool orientation session in very protected, confined open water, similar to what you would do if you've got an open water course and you don't have a swimming pool. And then the third part of the PADI dry suit course is the 2 open water dives, and during those 2 dives you have a number of skills that you have to complete to then achieve your certification. So those, So yeah, the skills during those 2 dives, obviously everything is a lot more clumsy. There's a couple of, your buoyancy feels very, very different. So those skills that previously would have been very, very straightforward in leggings and a rashie or even a thin wetsuit then become very, very hard in the dry suit. So what should you learn during your course? The first thing that we cover is how to get in and out of your dry suit. It takes a lot longer and is a lot more difficult than getting in and out of even a 7mm wetsuit. They're a lot less flexible, they're a lot thicker, so it does take a lot more help from your buddy usually. So one of the biggest things of dry suit diving is that you're a lot more reliant on other people for help with your equipment than you would necessarily be elsewhere. Also with the zip is often across the back of your shoulders or diagonally across your front. If it's across your front, it's pretty easy to zip yourself into your dry suit, but if it's across the back of your shoulders, then you have to get your buddy to help you. And that usually means there's the easiest way to help your buddy do your zip is to sort of pretend that you're hugging a tree and sort of hold your hands out in front of you as if you're holding a beach ball, and then you can put the zip across. There's also quite a lot of difficulty getting through the sort of the seals on your wrist and your neck. They're the most delicate part of the suit, so you need to be quite careful getting in and out. and it will rip your hair out. I've lost half of my hair since I started dry suit diving, but yeah, it's not as glamorous, but if it keeps me warm and it keeps me dry, I'm quite happy to do it. So the next thing you're probably going to learn is hopefully your correct weighting. Obviously with the dry suit is a lot thicker, you're a lot more buoyant, you're going to need a lot more weight. In the tropical diving, if I'm teaching, or if I'm just diving for fun, I will probably dive with about 1.5 to 2 kilos, just to feel comfortable. Whereas in the dry suit, I've been diving with about 12 kilos. So obviously you need to think a lot more about where you're going to distribute your weight. So not having it all on your belt, which can be really, really uncomfortable. So having it in pockets or in trim weights, and then some on your belt as well. And then next up, when it comes to buoyancy, your buoyancy is very, very different from diving in leggings or shorts or whatever. I find your legs are a lot more buoyant. You're buoyant in places that wouldn't normally be buoyant. So just you feel like a new diver again. Like the first time I was in a dry suit, I felt so awkward and uncomfortable. But again, like the same as learning to dive. The same as when I'm learning to dive, when anyone is learning to dive, after a few dives, you're going to get used to it and you'll get back, your buoyancy control will come back. But yeah, you feel super awkward to begin with. One of the biggest things that you'll learn doing the dry suit course is what to do in the case of a feet first buoyant ascent. So obviously with the suit being quite closed off, if you only have, the only way of venting air from the suit is via a valve usually on your left hand shoulder. So that's the only way that you can get air out. So obviously if air gets into the feet part of your dry suit, it can cause you to sort of float up feet first, which then it's very hard to remove the air and regain sort of control of your buoyancy and not pop up to the surface feet first. So the way to do that, if this was to happen, to save yourself, is to actually you do a forward roll in the water whilst purging from your shoulder valve. So during the course you'll have a go at doing this a couple of times just to make sure that you're comfortable with that maneuver, which is awkward, but it does help a lot. Okay. So besides your dry suit, you're going to need to think about some other equipment that you wouldn't necessarily need diving in the tropics. So one of the first things is a hood, which I know a lot of people find very uncomfortable. I am now quite used to diving in the hood. Doing my dive master in Tenerife, so I've just seen this question on the side. So I actually haven't started teaching dry suit diving yet, but I've relearned all these skills, and hopefully at some point will I become certified to teach dry suit. I've just been assisting at the moment. So I hope that answers that question. So going back, a hood is a very important part of equipment. You lose a lot of heat through your head, so putting on the hood is going to help protect, keep you warm. They feel quite uncomfortable to begin with, but again, it's something you get used to the more you wear it. During my dive master, I kept getting really, really cold and refused to put the hood on because it was uncomfortable. And one time my instructor just said to me, you just have to put it on and you just have to wear it until you're used to it. But now I'm completely comfortable with it. And actually, I have a really thin hood that I quite often wear when I'm out in the tropics. I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to cold water or getting cold, so I put that hood on for night diving and whatever. Another thing to think about is gloves. So the picture here is wet gloves. Usually the ones I have are 5mm on the back of the hand and then 3mm on my palms. And this just makes them a bit more flexible, but they do make you super clumsy, and especially with photography, it's quite hard. You sort of have to put your camera on one setting and then take it and hope for the best. But it is actually possible to attach dry gloves to your dry suit as well, so that then becomes part of the system with your body. And the gloves are basically marigold, so dishwasher gloves. And then that gives you a lot more dexterity, and you're able to actually do stuff with your hands, which it would be quite nice. So that's kind of what I would, once I buy my own suit, is probably what the system that I'm gonna add to mine. So I'm just gonna go to a question here about whether it is whether having a hood on affects your ears. And it doesn't, because the hood is wet, so you do get water into the hood. You do sometimes have to sort of poke your finger in the side to let a little bit of water in to let your ears equalize, but it shouldn't have any bother with equalizing your ears. Yeah, but sometimes you get air in it as you're diving, and you get bubbles up the side of your hood, which is a bit weird and can be a bit off-putting to begin with, but as you go along, you'll get used to that kind of thing. The other thing to think about in Scotland is the fact that the water, the visibility here is not as good as the tropics. The other day we were diving and the visibility was about 10 meters, and that was the best that I've ever seen, and it was really, really exciting that the visibility was 10 meters. And actually one of the biggest things I noticed going from tropical diving to Scottish diving is the color of the water actually changed. In the tropics, we're very used to blue water, sort of turquoise, that beautiful, like Lara's pictures. Whereas here, the water is quite green. There's a lot more algae in the water, which causes it to actually have a greener color. I think one of my pictures, a couple of slides back, this one. So this is actually a true representation of the color of the water here. So it's very different. Hang on. So yeah, a torch is an incredibly important part of your diving equipment. I dive with a torch, usually in the tropics, because I like pointing out little things without having to touch them. So using your torch to point out what you're looking at. But here it becomes an almost essential part of your equipment if you really want to see much. Reminds me a lot of night diving at times, but I love night diving, so it's great. This picture here is actually of an umbilical torch. So you attach it to this part over your hand, and then you have the battery pack stored probably in your BCD pocket or somewhere else, so that you can have a far larger battery and a lot more power to your torch. Another part of equipment that is super important is an undersuit. I haven't actually got a picture at all, but an undersuit is incredibly important under your dry suit. As I said before, the neoprene dry suits are warmer, but they're still not going to be enough to keep you warm. The undersuits are usually made of sort of fleece-like material. And a lot of people here dive with Fourth Element undersuits. Apparently they're the best. And they're also a really great brand, sustainability-wise. So I've talked a lot about like the restrictions and how dry suit diving is a lot harder, and you're probably really wondering at this point, is it worth it all? And trust me, I have those moments sometimes as well, but it definitely is. There's so much to see, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about a few of the sites around Scotland. As I said earlier, I'm no expert. I'm still very new to this, and have only dived a couple of different sites, but I have heard quite a few through the grapevine, etc. So I'll talk a little bit about them. Oh yeah. So this is Scotland for anyone who doesn't know what Scotland looks like. There you go. So Loch Long. So for anyone who doesn't know, loch is actually a Scottish word for lake. There is only one lake in Scotland, and I don't actually entirely know why that one is a lake, but the equivalent in any other country, what we call a loch would be called a lake. Loch Long is actually a sea loch, so it's connected to the sea. It's salt water, and it's on the west coast of Scotland. So around about here. My geography is not great, and this isn't a great map, but it looks cool. So Loch Long is our main training site. It's got really good access, so there's a car park just right by. There's a lot more shore diving in Scotland, so a lot of parking and laybys and putting your dry suit on, etc., which is easier because you're usually wearing clothes underneath. You don't have to bother about swimwear, etc., getting changed in car parks, and hopefully you're going to stay dry. So yeah, it has very easy access parking wise, but also for access into the dive site. It's got a nice little set of rocky steps, and yeah, easy access, so you don't have to climb over too much to get into the water. And also because of where it is, it's up one of those sea lochs. It is quite protected from currents and the tide. There is tides, but the tides aren't too extreme, so it's a fairly reliable spot. Whatever, you don't have to worry too much about what the tide is doing. You can just turn up and dive no matter what. And I've got some pictures that I took in Loch Long. So Loch Long is a very popular training site, and a lot of people are quite disparaging of what there isn't necessarily all that much to see there, but personally I found it great. There's a lot of crabs, but at the moment I still really like crabs. So these are a couple of pictures of crabs that I took, and then we've got a big dog whelk up here, and then a teeny tiny little nudibranch, which I did ID, but I seem to have lost the name of it. But if you're really interested, give me a message. I can tell you about Scottish nudibranchs if you really want to. And actually this anemone here as well was found by one of the instructors I've been working with, Chris, who I think might be watching. And I was amazed to find something so bright and so colourful in Scotland. But it does go to show that there is some really cool, bright colourful things here. Okay, so the next site that is probably one of the most famous ones in Scotland is Scapa Flow, and that is in the far north of Scotland. And there's a group of islands called Orkney, and Scapa Flow is right in the middle of that little archipelago of islands. It's a very protected harbour and has a huge number of wrecks in it, so it's very famous for the wreck diving. I've heard people refer to it as one of the best wreck diving locations in the world. It has wrecks from both world wars. I can't remember if it's the First or Second World War, where the German fleet was anchored there when they were captured, and then when the war ended, the people on the boat decided to actually scupper a lot of the boats, so there's a huge number of wrecks up there. And I unfortunately haven't been yet, but it's very much on the list of places that I want to go, and hopefully thank you, World War I. Apparently some the viewers know more about this than I do, but it's very high on the list of places that I want to go dive, and hopefully maybe in the new year when things have settled down a bit, I might get a chance to go up. I think the cold water preserves wrecks better. So I've heard it compared to Coron in the Philippines, of like sort of the wrecks that are there, but these ones are a lot better preserved due to the colder water. Colder water preserves wrecks better. So the next location, this is actually not in Scotland. It's in the north of England, but it's probably closer to where I grew up than a lot of the other Scottish dive sites, ironically. and it's called the Farne Islands. It's off the northeast coast of Scotland, of Northern England, sorry. It's a little group of islands just off the coast, so it is boat diving rather than shore diving. The East Coast in general has better visibility than the West Coast. The West Coast has a lot more plankton in the water, and later on I'll show you why that's kind of a good thing. But the East Coast has better visibility, so when we were diving there, the visibility was maybe 15, 20 meters, which is comparable to some of the spots I've dived in the tropics. However, the East Coast is a lot more susceptible to currents and tides, so it makes the logistics of diving there a little bit more tricky. But the Farne Islands is especially famous for seals. There is quite a big seal colony there, so I'm sure a lot of you will have seen videos of people playing with seals and interacting with seals, and a lot of them are taken in the Farne Islands. We were there a couple of weeks ago. We're going back. There's a trip going again in October, and then hopefully again in November, which is just after my birthday. So hopefully I'll get some seals for my birthday. And then last time we were there, we actually, as we were coming back from the islands, we spent about an hour or so with a huge pod of dolphins. They reckon about 60 or 70 dolphins, and we followed them sort of all the way up the coast for about an hour or so. And then this video is just the dolphins. Oh, there we go. And these are actually bottlenose dolphins. Yeah, I'd love to dive with dolphins also. Sadly, I've only ever seen them from the surface, but yeah, I've heard them quite a lot, but yeah, definitely on my bucket list to dive with dolphins. You never know, Scotland might be the place that I finally get to do that. Here we go. Oh, hang on. So the next spot is just up the coast from the Farne Islands, St. Abbs, which is actually where one of the new most recent Thor movie was filmed. So it has a little sign outside the village saying "Welcome to New Asgard," which is kind of cool. Again, this is a place that I haven't actually dived yet, but I've heard a lot about. And as you can see, the coastline is very, very rugged. A lot of rock formations, etc. And I think that the diving there probably translates the rock formations to underwater, which would be pretty spectacular. And again, because it's on the East Coast, the visibility is supposed to be quite a lot better. This is only a couple of dive sites that I sort of have heard of and know a little bit about, but there is a lot more dive sites around. So all the way up, as you can see, like the west coast of Scotland has so many islands, and a lot of these islands have spectacular diving, and as I'm going to talk about next, a lot of really cool marine life. My plan is to dive a lot more over the next wee while. Doesn't look like I'm going to be traveling much, so exploring Scotland is very high on my list of priorities, and may involve some sort of custom built dive camper van if I'm really lucky. Here we go. So a little bit about some of the marine life that is more specific to Scotland. So Scotland in recent years has become very well known as one of the best places in the world to see basking sharks. Basking sharks are the second biggest shark species in the world, so just after whale sharks, which they have in the Philippines. And they are sort of whale sharks, like uglier cousin. I think they're beautiful, but sometimes they're not quite as glamorous as whale sharks. They're actually really closely related to great white sharks. Species-wise, they are quite closely related, and actually, when they have their mouth closed, can look incredibly like great white sharks. Obviously, with their mouth open, they look quite different, but with their mouth closed, the sort of similar head shape and fin shape, and quite often get mistaken for great white sharks, which always makes the news. And they're actually plankton feeders, the same as whale sharks. So unless you accidentally get caught in front of them, they're not going to do you any harm at all. I mean, to be honest, most sharks won't anyways. There's a history in Scotland of basking sharks actually being hunted. So they used to be hunted for their liver, which has a lot of oil in it. But they're now a protected species and actually are a huge tourism draw for the west coast of Scotland. As I said earlier, there's a lot more plankton on the west coast of Scotland in the water, so that's why the basking sharks are found there. They're very, very rarely seen off the east coast. The picture on the right here is a book that I read recently, which I would highly recommend if you are interested in basking sharks and learning a bit more about the history of them being hunted, but then also recent research and tourism surrounding basking sharks. I am not 100% sure on what the best time of year to see them is, but if you are interested in more about basking sharks, there's a great company based out of Oban called Basking Shark Scotland. They have an Instagram page which is full of really spectacular pictures of basking sharks, and I would highly recommend you go follow them. They've got a lot more information than I necessarily do. So the next animal up is seals. Seals are very, very popular, and Scotland is a really great place to interact with them and be in the water with them. We have two species of seals here in Scotland. So we've got grey seals and common or harbour seals. And seals really are like puppies of the sea. They're super curious and friendly, and will come up to you and interact with you. As with all marine life, it's best you shouldn't go towards them, you shouldn't approach them, but if they come towards you and want to play with you, then I would say enjoy that experience and interact with them on their basis, on their terms. They're super clumsy on land and sort of struggle to move around a lot on land, but they're really, really graceful in the water, and will swim circles around you, which is really cool. A couple of weeks ago, we were diving in the Farne Islands, and I was sort of swimming along quite happily and felt a little tug on one of my fins, and I've got white fins, so apparently they're very enticing for seals. And the seal was sort of tugging and biting on my fin, and I turned around to look at it, and it sort of shyly swam away. And then I turned around and kept swimming, and then felt another tug, and it just kept like, every time I looked at it, it would go away, but then as soon as I turned my head around, it would come back and play again, which was really a really fun interaction. And I'm hoping to see a lot more seals. They might be my new favourite. And next up, a really cool thing to see in not just Scotland, but the whole of the UK and sort of Northern Europe is lion's mane jellyfish, which I looked up today, and they are, the ones I've seen so far have been really big and had really long tentacles, but apparently they can grow up to be 2 meters across, so the big squishy part at the top can be up to 2 meters across, and then their tentacles can be up to 36 meters long, which is absolutely insane. But diving with them in Scotland, because you have so little skin exposed, as you can see in this picture of me, the only skin that you have exposed is between the bottom of your mask and sort of halfway down your chin, so you have a tiny, tiny bit of skin exposed. So you'd be incredibly unlucky if you did actually manage to be stung by one of these. But they're incredibly beautiful to see and impressively big. So some other marine life that I don't have any pictures of that can be found in Scotland. Scotland actually has a lot of coral. It's mostly soft coral due to the fact that it's just the coral is very different from tropical coral. It's less colourful, but it's still equally impressive and equally biodiverse within Scotland. As you saw from a lot of my earlier pictures, there's a lot of crabs, a lot of different species of crabs, but I have really enjoyed seeing all the crabs, and I find them quite charismatic actually. Sorry. Another really interesting thing that you can see during dives in Scotland is actually birds. Around Scotland, there's a lot of seabirds that actually dive into the water to catch their fish. And the other day I was on a dive and was looking at one of these jellyfish, and a bird swam past, which my immediate thought was penguin. And was sort of trying to get my students' attention to show her this penguin, which wasn't a penguin, obviously. But that was probably one of the coolest things I've seen. You really don't expect to see a bird swim past you when you're at about 8 meters. Okay, so that's kind of the end of what my thoughts on Scottish diving so far. This is just my information again, so that's my information there at the top. My email, if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, or I'm probably more likely to respond on Instagram. A lot of the pictures throughout this presentation are my own, so if you're interested in seeing some more, feel free to follow. And then just Diving Adventures Scotland, so if you are interested in coming out for a dive or just want to see what we've been up to with regards to diving, there's the website, email, and we've also now on Instagram. And then just at the bottom there, that's Track, which is the place I was working for in Borneo. Yeah, so does anyone have any other questions? No?
Thanks so much, Isla. That was lovely. I'm actually super excited to go diving in Scotland now.
Yeah, you should
I had
come.
absolutely no idea what it was going to be like. So, well, I'm not too far away now, so I
Yeah,
might actually.
with restrictions, I don't know. They're a bit weird at the moment, but
Yeah,
hopefully
exactly.
at some point.
Well, hopefully before November or so. But again, thank you so much for joining and for giving this lovely presentation. Guys, does anyone have any questions for any of us?
Oh.
No. So far, so good. All right, then I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. We will be uploading this. Yeah, we will be uploading this to our YouTube channel, so you can all read through it again or listen to it again. I mean, and yeah, feel free to follow these ladies on Instagram. They post some amazing pictures when they're out diving. You can do the same for us as well. And hopefully see you again next month for another webinar. We do have one tomorrow, but for a European time zone, that is fairly early, and the same for the US. That is pretty much in the middle of the night. So we will do another one next month for European and US time zone. So again, thanks so much, guys, and I wish you a pleasant evening.
Thanks, B. Likewise. I have a question for Isla. I don't know if she's still here.
I am
think
still here,
so.
yes. Yes,
So what do you use? Because your photos are awesome.
thank you. I have a TG6. Hang on, I have it right here actually. But I have a sort of a bit of a lighting setup. I'll just pop my camera on. Hi.
Hello. Okay.
So I have the camera and then I have a video light as well.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, guys, we shall be logging off. If you have any questions for any of us, feel free to message us at info@instructordevelopmentphilippines.com. Thank you very much, guys.